so cool there. It's so pretty.
Wave, Sensei. Wave, wave. Wave. Wave your hand.
So cute.
Yeah, but apparently I think a lot of it is cleaned by 3D, so it's disinfected and whatever. But shall not. No.
I feel like it probably has a lot of minerals.
Oh,
Drag it out. It's a cat.
Oh my god, cute.
It sounds like a Pokemon. I feel actually kind of bad. Hey, look at us in freedom while you're.
I have never seen
They are her babies.
She picked up a worm. Ew.
Bye.
No, Sasha picked up a worm.
But I told you it's a moustache, right?
Yeah, but I didn't know how to do it. Sorry.
So what's a kudasai?
Did you get that in the menu?
We used to have a KFC in my town, but it's
Yeah, we used to have a KFC.
Hey, someone bring his feet out.
Keep editing, keep editing. Evil. I'm not smelling it. It's fine.
Bring the feet out.
GG.
Take a whiff. Dude, really open your nostrils. Watching probably think was so weird. Was it that bad?
Yes, even to my stuffy nose, bro.
Kisama.
I love you.
Kisama.
I
危ないですから、黄色い点字ブロックまで押さない。
I'm just playing games. I know that's plastic love. Dance to the plastic beat. Another morning come.
What? Why the what?
Be careful. That's how it's work. Everyone.
The Higashi Honganji and the Nishi Honganji, East Honganji and the West Honganji. These are like one of the, I think, biggest temples. Yeah. So take a look at it. So this is the veranda that Miyamoto Musashi is supposed to call. You can see frog. They're floating. Frog.
かっこいい。すげえ。You know what I mean? You know, like the stones that. It's crazy. It's actually crazy.
It looks like cotton candy. Yum yum.
We were just there like.
What
yeah,
did you
whatever.
just say?
I see this every day.
I see.
I love the lights. Like I love how everything looks in the night. So cute.
countries are given like all leaflets because they're doing what they can to protect their people. That's the kind of stance it is.
Hey, what is it? 18-year-old Chinese boy. I'm going to. Yeah. Oh, you did. Wait, that's so cute. Dang, wait, this match is really good. That's adorable.
Kyoto and in Osaka I did bar hopping. Then 2019.
Oh my goodness.
Sounded like a fake laugh. By the time you turned to me.
I genuinely laughed and it sounded fake, so I just made it.
I guess that's cool.
Yeah, we recommend. Okay. Then we eat with rice.
No, I saw it. I ended it.
I forgot.
There was a
His name was Charlie.
there was a little no Charlie. Let me just go to my vacation house. And this is it.
Doesn't want to deal with the Mongols. Oh, let me just buy a vacation home.
Let me just GTF.
That's a main hole.
That's exactly what I want to do.
Good idea.
Dude.
隣が多分ね、メリあ、戸田も近いですかね。川口は遠いんだよな。多分東京とか近い。船橋区とか練馬区。
こっちここのとこそこで帰ってきたイタリアンスパゲッティ作って食べようか。焼きそば。彼は ないから
3人
だからなんか
ものすごいかけた。
よろしくお願いします。
お願いします。
はい、乾杯。
はい、乾杯です。はい、乾杯です。
超カラフル。
ちょっと黄色、イエローがあったり、
そう
レッドがあったり。
オレンジ。
Stupid little titty. She's pink and she's pretty.
Got people in America, people just coming for photos.
Yo, my shirt. No, you gotta like, nah, dude, because it looks like. You hear it?
They actually hold like
Yeah, they have workshop and they have actual no theater. Yeah, and then the no actors come out. And then
Wouldn't you like to know?
Oh yes, it's right. This
Arigato.
ごめんなさい、写真。あ。どうも。
犬いるみたいな。
ありがとう。
I don't know how to pose. I'm too short.
ありがとうございます。
お好みでお使いください。失礼いたします。
かわいい。
ありがとうございました。皆様のお手伝いがなかったら、ね、これはなかなかできないことなので、とても助かります。
Thank you. Thank you.
北畑君に笑われちまって。
TA さんも本当にどうもありがとうございます。クラス私が一人で全部しているので、皆さんの助けがなければできないことでした。それからホストファミリーの皆さん、本当に素晴らしい経験を。
ここで田中律子君に消えた言葉クイズ。その言葉を知っているか若者に聞いたところ、
テレビカメラ録画するやつ。
テレビカメラですね。この言葉一体何だと思いますか？
テレフォンカード。
正解はテレフォン。
可愛いですとかっていっぱい買っちゃって、もうだから
わあ、いい。